we have the free will to decide to become aware or not. However, this free will seems to be circumscribed in a way because we are expected to seek awareness of the reality of life. Here, free will seems to be a kind of double-edged sword. So what do you say about it, Duane?
Well, Charles, you're up. Yeah, free will. Well, actually, look at yourself, look at everyone else, and look at anything that's moving about, you might say. It's all awareness, and it's just automatic. We have free will. We decide something. It's very simple. But as we go through whatever experiences we do, we better figure out how to, make better choices, you might say, that provide us with something that makes sense. It's really very simple, but at the same time, it's very complex because of everything that we have gone through and we're going through right now. So, you see how it is just by the simplest things being presented. And actually, as people confront themselves, many times they're just more confused because they don't know what to decide because of what we've gone through. Everything we've gone through is necessary. It's just figuring it out. So the free will, that's something automatic. And it's just learning to recognize it instead of just, you might say, unconsciously making choices for something. But then again, we also have to deal with, we are the product of our environment with whatever the environment is. Each lifetime we come around, the body type we have, all these different things, all these variables to figure out and eventually focus and recognize something that, does make sense and it is real according to the reality life is. So free will's an idea here that we use, and we can decide whatever we want. And again, being the product of our environment is the biggest thing I see, because we're making choices and we have a body. We've been raised a particular way, and the basic idea is survival. And then we're in an environment here, we're in a social structure here to where, we chase things and chase ideas, you might say, thinking that the end result will equal something, but really it's all about recognizing our awareness, because everything is awareness. It's not the phenomena that we create. So it's a real pickle that we're in creation. It really is. Yeah, and we have to deal with it because this is how it is. Yeah, how can you explain free will? Well, it just is. It's part of your, it's part of the reality life is. But in the physical sense, it looks to be something according to the personal self that's created, but actually it's not. It's really about your real awareness and recognizing where the free will really comes from. It doesn't come from your mind and your brain and your personal self. It comes from the real you and learning to make choices accordingly. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Duane, I sometimes feel that some years from now, those who will come to know about the new presentation, I think they will have no clue about what you are saying about Harold and Joanee. And they may be wondering what the hell, what the heck they have to do with has the new presentation to do with them at all. So, what do you think about this then?
Okay, so we'll go there for a moment, and as time goes on, let's just play this game with how things will come to be. Well, everything that we have around us will be changing also, will become transformed or different or what have you. And again, that's just part of it, just like what Paul wrote about and he presented. It was the same idea what he came through, and uh, whatever teachers, masters, the groups, everything that he went through. It will just vanish into the wind. It'll become history. It'll be rewritten, etc. Most people relate to something, so we'll see. We'll see. They'll become characters in a movie like the Joker, etc. So for right now, them and others in the world, what we're doing in our own way is we're not criticizing them. It's just, again, everything's fine. It's more like a warning as to what's going on, because this is what we're doing now. And as we move along, yes, we're going to move past these things and they'll become memories. But for right now, the relationships that exist here. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, another concern I have is about what the wonderful worldwide educators is doing, carrying out children's new school, homeschool sensitization, and devising programs to help the children. Now, this is laudable, and it reminds one that children are grown-ups, actually grown-ups, uh, in small bodies, but how can we gauge the success of these programs when children are dependent on their parents or guardians, when growing up, and for the most part, take on the restrictions and limitations, not only of those they depend on, but also on the secular education programs that dictate what should be taught in schools. So I begin to ask myself, Duane, is this an exercise in futility?
Okay, Charles, you're a teacher, so what's your view from your viewpoint as a teacher? Is it futility?
Yeah, my viewpoint is, maybe we go a little, don't take things serious with these kids, because they will need to go through a lot before they come to the stage where they have to um, decide for themselves. They are still dependent, and they'll still have to face the forces, let me call them negative forces of this world. And so I don't think we should, although we should make the parents aware that their kids are having great experiences, they should listen to the kids and all the like. It's true, we should do that. But I don't think that uh, much, I don't expect much from it. I don't know what your opinion is.
Really? I see a whole lot, and that is the potential is there. It's just you have to decide to do it like anything, just like the new presentation. Again, I'm sure many people thought it was futile. Well, It is for most people. And again, you're a teacher, you're teaching these children to become part of the system that exists, that's already been established, that controls everything in the human farming. And so you look at the world, and as these children grow up and older, they agree. So that becomes the routine unless someone steps in and decides something else. So yeah, according to those in control, they will laugh and say, oh, what you're doing is futile. But according to the whole of life, I would say no. But again, it's giving that individual a chance to where, they have the opportunity to decide. So I see the difference. I focus on that. Yes, I see the children as very important because as they start to wake up, even the smallest parts of them start to wake up, they have a chance to, establish themselves with something else besides just the system that's going to take over them. So again, what do? You do nothing and just let them go, or do you try something, etc.? So I don't see it in any of those regards at all, and I don't see the system as anything of just because the system exists and it's so-called bigger than the individual. That relationship with the true reality of life is everything. But again, you've got to see it. I gave my daughter a chance. She has it. She can always refer to that, you see, like she refers to everything else. At some point, the individual can realize that everything that they go through is just references, and the reality of themselves is their real awareness. So again, when you have these ideas like futile, that's in the mind of somebody that wants to control someone else. That's what that is. It's a control mechanism. Somebody saying, oh, what you're doing is futile. That doesn't make sense with the whole of life. So that idea relates to the restrictions in creation, you see? So where do these ideas lie? Do they have potential for anything? No, you're just throwing them into the basket of control. I see the awareness of the individual. That's what I look for. I don't look for the other things. What does the system look for? Getting the children, the adults, etc., routined to particular lifestyle that they are limited to and unaware of where they're going, especially actually each lifetime, you're actually preparing to step out of this body. That's reality. But how the systems have been set up is that the idea is to keep you here for as long as they can, so you have that routine idea to where when you come back in next time, you have that same idea instead of, passing on, you might say, as one way to look at, into a better situation and preparing for that. Well, what people are being prepared for here is really their own demise, is just to keep starting again and again and again. So where does the idea of futile or any of these things lie just because it hasn't been established? And really, when you look at the establishment, look at how long it's taken the controlling establishment to get its hold on people, and still it doesn't have it, and people are rebelling, etc. So really, it has nothing to do with these ideas. It's bringing the reality, the evidence, the opportunity of what is real with the individual into play. And I don't see any competition. I see what makes sense. And again, that's where free will comes in. The individual will choose. It'll be up to them. But the opportunity still, I like the challenge of providing the opportunity. That's what I like, because through that challenge, the real awareness is even sparked more to become more aware, you see. And those people that don't take on the challenge, well, they'll just be drawn and implode with their own personal self. So there is a big difference, Charles.
Okay, so we have to do something after all. Yeah, Duane, many people do not remember that uh, they had been here before, and they come back. Their minds are like a clean slate, but others can recall that they have been to this level of life, and they can pinpoint where they lived the last life, and even call the names of some family members at the time, and people have visited where they lived in the last incarnation, and even met their family members and told them how they were caught in the past life. So what makes for these discrepancies? Some people can recall, some cannot. I don't know.
It's really very simple. It's not necessarily a recall. It is your real awareness, just like it sees the lifetimes that it lived. And the memory idea, that's like a computer, like the mind. The memory idea. This is why in the causal realm, the Akashic records, there's only so much that can be stored there, because you might say it has capacity in a way. But in the universal files, the real you have it all. So when the individual recalls that, I had a neighbor over here, a child, she recalled her, she was about 3 or 4 years old. And I saw her on the real side with her brother, too. She recalled her past life name and recalled many things. They talk about it. The parents never really followed along with that. Parents are just social. But the husband did a little bit. I knew him. He was a good guy. The wife, she wasn't really interested. But it's the real awareness that sees this. And from this angle here, viewing the child, it would seem like, oh, you have memory, recall, whatever. It's not the memory. It's the real awareness of the individual. And again, when I raised my daughter, that's what I focused on. If the educational system, which it won't, focuses on the real awareness, then things here would be completely different as opposed to what they are. But it focuses on the personal self and keeping people one-dimensional. In other words, even keeping all the 5 bodies into the physical body, and that's as far as it goes. This is why Paul started off to make it easy with people, because astral projection, or what you call bilocation, and eventually soul travel, is easy for people. They can, move about through the bodies because the bodies are familiar. But to recognize the real awareness, well, that's something else. In other words, people did have experiences in the real universes, but they didn't recognize what it was. So it's that recognition. So, yeah, that remembering is very interesting. So from the scientific view, it's like, oh, this child has a good memory or something like that. But for the most part, if you talk to psychiatrists or any of the so-called professional doctors or profession, they'll just say the child's hallucinating or has dreams or fantasies, you see. And many children try to tell their parents about what's going on, but they don't listen because the parents themselves have no experience, basically the knowledge of what's going on. And so, yeah, that comes from the real awareness. And the children can see it because they're not conditioned. They're not so heavily looking at the conditioning until they become absorbed in the conditioning. Then that part of what they see and relate to becomes blocked out, you might say. So they're more interested in the conditioning. They just kind of go with it. But when the children are very young, it's whatever comes up moment by moment. And if they see something, oh, that's what they see. If they see invisible friends, whoa, that's what they see for that moment. But as they become more absorbed, all they see is this one-dimensional world. So, yeah, it's not memory like you think. Because again, the bodies are mechanical. Those are machines, like your car. They simply house information, just like the brain. It's a receiver. It's not alive. It just receives impressions. You see? There is a difference, but it's what you're aware of to recognize this. And yes, some people do recognize that.